This is HighIntensityBusiness.com with Lawrence Neal, helping you achieve your health and fitness goals. Become a great personal trainer and build your high-intensity strength training business.
This episode is brought to you by the Resistance Exercise Conference. Would you like to learn from the top strength training professionals and researchers, network and connect with other exercise professionals from all over the world, and get inspired, rejuvenated, and focused on your strength training business? I certainly do, and that is why this will be my third appearance at REC. It's my favorite weekend of the year, and I'm so excited to attend again in March 2020. So why else should you attend REC? Well, firstly, there will be keynote presentations from exercise icons like Dr. Bente Klarland-Pedersen, Stuart Phillips, PhD, James Fisher, PhD, and Luke Carlson. As a studio owner, you will learn business tactics and strategies on how to grow your business from the CEO of Discover Strength, the highest revenue producing strength training company in the nation. Moreover, you will grow your network by connecting with other strength training business owners from around the world. As a personal trainer, REC will provide you with tangible training techniques to take back to your clients to implement right away for better results. And REC is approved by ACSM, NASM, ACE, and NSCA for continuing education credits. The conference will be held on the 27th and 28th of March 2020 at the gorgeous Graduate Hotel in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Join me and register now over at resistanceexerciseconference.com. If you want to take your strength training business to the next level and build a world-class personal training and business network, you must attend. Please register now over at resistanceexerciseconference.com. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to HighIntensityBusiness.com. This is episode 249. Today's guest is co-founder of PNOE, Panos Papadiamantis. Panos, did I pronounce your name correctly? Your last name?
That is correct. Thank you so much for having me here, Neil.
You're welcome.
It's a great pleasure.
Yeah, it's Lawrence Neal is the last name. You're not the only one to make that mistake.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's written the other way around here. But Lawrence, very, very sorry about that. But again, thank you so much for having me here.
Don't worry. It happens all the time. I must get that like once a day. But I'm just glad I pronounced your last name correctly because it
was actually pretty good. I wasn't expecting it to be as good.
I didn't have any practice. Normally, I would ask you before we actually go live, is this how you pronounce it, just to make sure I don't screw it up. But look, I've been excited to talk to you about yourself and PNOE, your business. And I first found out about you through one of my clients who was looking at your product and was interested in my view on it. And I had not heard of it before. I had absolutely no opinion. And so I thought I would reach out to learn more about it, ask you some questions, and try and create a resource for people so that they can listen to you talk about it and learn more about the mission and things like that, and then make their own decision on how they want to move forward. The first question I had for you, though, is something that really intrigued me. Were you invested in by Y Combinator as part of this?
That is correct. Yeah, we are a Y Combinator company. We graduated from YC. We were in winter batch 2019.
Wow. Okay. So are they still invested in your business now?
So YC has a pretty typical deal for all of the companies that go through YC. They invest $150,000 at this point, at least, in exchange for 7% equity participation in the company. So YC is an investor in the company. And what normally happens is that as you continue to raise money from investors, YC will normally maintain or even expand its equity participation by investing more money into the company.
Right. Okay. I'm a big fan of Paul Graham. I read his essays on his website all the time. So are you familiar with Paul? Have you met Paul?
Well, we haven't met personally, but I've seen him in the events, etc.
All right, so you've seen him in the flesh. That's closer than I've been. No, I'm a big fan of his the essays on his website. And in fact, when I was in Greece, I was telling you about my trip to Kos recently. I was just binging all of his essays, make a manager schedule, all of that stuff. Find it fascinating. So I want to obviously learn about PNOE and what you guys are up to. So do you want to give the listeners an introduction about the product, exactly what it is?
Sure, yeah. So in PNOE, what we do is that we help people achieve their fitness, their performance, their health goals through precision. And the precision of our programming is based on cardio-metabolic analysis. Cardio-metabolic analysis is probably one of the most foundational assessments a person can do. It is, in simple words, the process of analyzing oxygen uptake and carbon dioxide production in a person's breath, along with 12 other biomarkers and in the person's breath. And based on that analysis, we scan the three most important physiological systems of the human body: your metabolism, your heart function, and your lung function. And by doing that analysis, you get three things. First of all, you get the gold standard information for building a nutrition plan. You get the gold standard information for building a workout plan. And also, you get the ability to scan for pretty much every costly and lethal chronic disease, like cardiovascular disease, pulmonary disease, or metabolic disease. So, what most people think at this point is, okay, if this is something so important and foundational, why isn't everyone doing it? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, definitely is cost. Before PNOE, in order for someone to gain access to a clinical grade cardio-metabolic analyzer, they would need to spend anywhere between $40,000 and $60,000, which is certainly not within the budget of the average gym. Then another very important thing is ease of use. These devices would require hours and hours of training, and most times they would be operated by highly specialized personnel. We're normally talking about hundreds of tests in order to get to a point where you can really say that you've mastered the operations. But then lastly, and probably the most important reason, is the fact that until today, no manufacturer had actually provided true support to the practitioner, to the dietitian, the trainer, the clinician, when it comes to going from cardiometabolic data to an actionable plan, a diet, a workout, or a diagnosis. Most devices, most manufacturers, what they would provide is either a graph, graphs of, cardiometabolic information that you were supposed to be able to analyze yourself, or at best they would give you a printout, which includes like training zones and thresholds. And the reality is that no one actually knows what to do with these thresholds. No one actually knows how to build a workout plan or a diet plan based on these generic reports.
So you're like bridging the gap, basically.
Sorry, what's that?
So you're like bridging the gap in that sense.
So, and that brings me to, why is PNOE different? In PNOE, not only did we build the world's first portable, low cost, but still clinical grade cardiometabolic analyzer in terms of accuracy, we coupled it with a data analysis service that allows anyone to go from cardiometabolic data to an actionable plan, a diet, a workout, diagnosis, you name it, without the skills needed or the significant time investment needed to conduct that analysis. Because don't get me wrong, cardiometabolic analysis is notorious in the clinical world for being one of the most intricate data sets out there. And by the way, another big issue with the fact that no one until today has provided support for analysis is that even in the existing user base of cardiometabolic analyzers, people are simply scratching the surface of the insights that they are providing based on the tests they're running. There are so many things which are left unutilized in the data sets that are being collected. And it's such a big waste because people can be getting so much more information about their health, about their nutrition, about how to structure their program, and people simply do not have the background and do not have the time in many cases to do the full analysis and provide the full shebang to their customers. And so, this combination of all these three things, like, cost, ease of use, you just need an app to operate PNOE, and then a complete solution that provides you with workout planning, diet planning, or diagnosis is what has made us quite successful, and allowed like hundreds of gyms today to integrate cardio-metabolic analysis in their practice effectively. And
how successful is it at the moment in terms of like number of, I don't know, units sold or users or whatever metrics you might?
Yeah. So we are very close to getting to about 1,000 gyms at this point, and we did that in a little over a year. Again, the reason for that explosive growth has been certainly the fact that we have this combo of low cost, ease of use, but a lot of support. There's multiple different cases where people try to democratize, let's say, cardiometabolic testing by having one or the other. For example, as I told you, there are devices that give you a report. However, that report in many cases doesn't really say anything. It's just thresholds and training zones. In our team, we have a very large team of metabolic experts, RDs, coaches who will literally craft the diet plan or the workout plan based on the metabolic data received from the test, and also a lot of information gathered from the
And that's not an
questionnaire.
Additional cost. I mean, we'll go to the business model at the end of this probably, but that's not an additional cost on top of what people are already paying for that analysis at the back end, or is there?
So there is obviously a small fee for the analysis. In the United States, we charge $20 for the analysis, and that analysis includes the workout programming and also the assessment. And then depending on where you are, there is an additional fee for the diet plan, because there needs to be a registered dietitian who's going to review the diet and then stamp the diet, et cetera, et cetera. The reality is that in most cases, the time that you would require in order to analyze the data is approximately an hour, if you have the knowledge to actually analyze the data. And so paying $20 to get the analysis done and get the workout programming there for you, which again isn't just training zones, is actually the real breakdown between cardio training, HIIT training, and strength training. We actually give you how much of each your client has to be doing. Getting that for $20 is something that has really helped people augment their training and their offering.
Here's a challenge that I want to raise now. It's probably good timing since you mentioned the zones. So as you know a little bit, Panos, I mean, I don't expect you to know in detail about my audience, but my listeners and myself, we practice something different. We practice high intensity strength training. Now, it often gets thrown into the same bag as high intensity training, and high intensity training has come to be very ambiguous and mean all sorts of things. So when you say, "Oh, I do high intensity strength training," people assume they think they know what we're doing. But just to make sure you and I are on the same page, when I say it, I mean slow, controlled strength training done with body weight, free weights, or machines, typically done with one set to muscular failure. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this way of exercising and why my audience are passionate about it is because we strongly believe, and there's plenty of scientific rigor behind this, that it is the most efficient and the most effective and the safest way to produce results in people. And the other thing that is interesting to me, and I'm not surprised, because this is very much something which you see all over the health and fitness industry, is how you broke that down into zones. You talked about cardio, HIT or HIIT, and strength training. Whereas when you strength train, you are using your aerobic, your anaerobic systems. You're using your cardiorespiratory system. You are engaging your muscular system, all your fibers. You're getting everything with that one protocol. So I guess what I'm trying to say is in our industry, we see no reason to split the training into different zones unless someone is trying to cultivate a specific skill. Like let's say someone's a basketball player, then you're going to want to strength train them for all of the benefits of muscular strength, joint health, conditioning, all of that. But then you're going to want them to practice the sport so they get good at the skills involved in the sport and the specific adaptations to that. But we don't see value in, so I know this is a really long question, so forgive me, Panos, but like if you spat a breakdown out of your metabolic analysis that said this person should train this much in cardio, this much in HIIT, I just don't know if that's useful in our industry because we believe the one protocol addresses everything. So what would you say to that?
Okay, so I partially agree and partially disagree. I agree with the fact that strength training is one of the most important pieces, if not the most important piece, in a person's training. For most people, maybe not for an endurance athlete, but for someone who wants to lose weight, I too agree with you that it starts with strength training. As I like to say, it starts under the squat rack. And the science behind that is the following. There were quite a few recent studies that came to light that basically show how obesity needs to be treated as a disease. It needs to be treated as a physiological perturbation, in the sense that it's the so-called endocrine response to weight loss that leads a person's body into a reduced metabolic state. Basically, your body is burning fewer calories. And many people tend to think that this is simply a reduction in your RMR and your resting metabolic rate. That's partially true. It's actually true in a minority of cases. In the majority of cases, what is actually happening is an increase in musculoskeletal efficiency. In other words, every step you take is going to be less energetically costly, is going to be expending fewer calories. And as a result, that reduction is causing people to burn fewer calories during the day, as a result, going to the so-called weight loss plateau. And then the problem is that if you continue doing whatever it is that you're doing that is causing that slowdown, which is in most cases cutting calories and doing excessive amounts of cardio, that's a recipe for destroying your metabolism, basically. People who go on and do that for prolonged periods of time will see a sustained reduction in their metabolism. In other words, when they go back to eating normal, their metabolism will not recover. And then the real problem starts, because normal eating at that point is actually a surplus in calories for that person. That person will now start to gain weight by eating normally. And in order to lose weight, you need to go in an even harder diet to cut calories even further compared to what you did in the first phase. So how do you break that spiral? The most effective way is strength training, for sure. Like the most effective way is resistance training. It has been shown to be probably the most important contributor in maintaining high levels of metabolism, which is going to be the most important thing in weight loss. Now, how does metabolic analysis come into play? Metabolic analysis is one of the most effective ways for measuring musculoskeletal efficiency. What you need to do is basically put a person on a cycle ergometer. You measure his metabolic power. You measure his mechanical power, because you're measuring watts on a bicycle. And then you take the ratio of mechanical power over metabolic power. In other words, you're measuring what percentage of his chemical energy being expended is actually transformed into mechanical propulsion. And that is called gross mechanical efficiency. By looking at that metric, you can actually see whether the amount of strength training that you're doing is actually enough in order to maintain a good level of musculoskeletal efficiency. And this is where we disagree, because you say that strength training is the only thing that needs to happen. I say that strength training is very, very important. It needs to be there. It needs to be what we strategize around when it comes to weight loss specifically. But for sure, we cannot neglect the value of cardio training. Cardio training, low intensity, low to medium intensity cardio training is what will build for your body fat burning efficiency in the long term. Let me just clarify that for the listeners. Fat burning efficiency is not our ability to lose fat. Fat burning efficiency is our ability, our cellular ability, our mitochondrial ability to utilize fat as a fuel source. That is an incredibly important metric for health and specifically cellular health. So making sure that we have good cellular health, making sure, which is think of it as a long-term health metric, making sure that we have a high VO2 peak, making sure that we have good endurance are also incredibly important pieces of human physiology. And we build those through cardio and HIIT training. However, cardio training will have an impact, a negative impact in your musculoskeletal efficiency. And that's why, it's always a balance of the three that will produce the best results and will produce a person that is ultimately healthy.
Yeah, good comeback. No, yeah, I'm quite impressed by your. I'm assuming you've got I'm guessing you've got a physiology background based on your understanding of all that stuff, right?
No, so I did my first degree in mechanical engineering. What I like to say is that I am passionate about systems and machines,
right?
And the system that fascinates me the most is the human body. We look at the human body as a system and analyze it as a system. So my understanding of things is more of an engineering of an engineer's understanding and an engineer's vantage point. But over the past 3.5 years, as with my co-founder Apostolos, when we started the project, we really needed to start from the very, very basic things and really understand why cardio-metabolic analysis is such an important tool. And to do so, we read pretty much everything that's out there. So that's where the understanding comes from.
Yeah. So okay, so let's bring it back. So that's then your justification for the device spitting out these training zones, because from your perspective, you feel that strength training and some kind of cardio activity is important, and then striking a balance between the two and knowing how much to invest in each and how to program that. You think that's important for
absolutely
results.
Like
yeah.
the American Heart Association, and sorry, I didn't answer that part of the question. Like, why do we have training zones? We don't have training zones, obviously, to inform strength training. We are fully aware of the fact that when you're doing strength training, you are predominantly using your anaerobic system, and training zones are not applicable in these cases. Training zones are applicable when you're doing HIIT training and when you're doing cardio training. It's just,
I get you. Yeah.
And training zones, and this is what I was saying earlier, training zones is just one of the things you're getting from cardio-metabolic analysis, which is relevant to HIIT and cardio training. There's a very big list of items that you also get which have nothing to do with cardio training or strength training, or HIIT training. Sorry, but
what kinds of items?
What
kinds of items?
Analysis of your cardiovascular health, analysis of your pulmonary health, breaking down your muscle fiber composition. So cardio-metabolic analysis is probably the most effective, non-invasive way of scanning what is the type 1 and type 2 muscle fiber composition in your body. Analyzing your ventilation mechanics. Ventilation mechanics is basically looking at breathing frequency, tidal volume, and end-tidal CO2. End-tidal CO2 is the highest concentration of CO2 during exhalation, and tidal volume is the total amount of air that we are exchanging per breathing cycle. End-tidal CO2 and tidal volume have been shown to be the strongest indicators and predictors of myoskeletal problems. even stronger than traditional FMS. So it's a great thing. It's a great tool in the hands of a physical therapist or a chiropractor. And in fact, we have many such cases in the United States. Chiropractors and physical therapists using these metrics in order to conduct posture assessment on their customers. Now, entitled CO2 and breathing frequency also a great indicator for hyperventilation. Hyperventilation, the state at which we are breathing against our metabolic requirements, is the number one factor impacting the oxygenation of your brain. As a result, an important factor impacting your ability to think and react fast, an incredibly important thing when it comes to extreme sports. We actually work with a lot of training facilities that focus on extreme sport athletes where reaction time is of the essence, and we are using the device to measure ventilation mechanics and see if there is some sort of tendency to hyperventilate, and if yes, under which conditions, in order to provide the proper training so that these people will not to hyperventilate when they are in the race. Because 60 seconds of hyperventilation can reduce substantially the oxygenation levels of your brain, and then your reaction time, your ability to think fast, goes down the drain. And it's probably okay if you're running a marathon where everything is the same for hours, but it's not okay if you are in a race car. If it's not okay if you are if you're doing motocross, et cetera, et cetera. There it can be the difference between life and death. So there are all sorts of things that we get from cardio-metabolic analysis. Again, the traditional view is these are your training zones, which is ultimately dull, useless, and extremely myopic when it comes to all of the breadth of information that is there.
Yeah, no, that was interesting. So I'm guessing that you'll get some clients who may be working with professional athletes who take many of these different markers very, very seriously to then be able to tailor whatever training or diet they think is going to be best with your assistance, it sounds, to help that athlete. And then I'm guessing there's a couple of nerds who just enjoy getting all this data, right? Even if it doesn't necessarily provide them with any means to... even if they're not necessarily going to adapt their training to it, they might just want the data. People enjoy just sort of seeing the numbers, seeing information about themselves. For example, if you're going to tell someone about their muscle composition, I'm not sure how much that would change a strength training protocol, for example. And then I guess, so is that correct in that do you have that in your client base? So you have those who are like working with professional athletes who want to optimize everything. So this type of data is potentially really useful in that context, more so than the other end of the spectrum where, people are just looking to burn some body fat or build some muscle.
The majority of our user base comprises of general population fitness professionals and businesses, as we like to call it. So boutique studios, trainers who deal with, everyday people. The reason is predominantly weight loss, because in the United States, most people just need to lose weight and get healthier. For them, cardio-metabolic analysis is as important as it is in the case of an elite athlete, because, as I said earlier, the most important thing in weight loss is understanding whether the program that you're doing, the nutrition and the workout that you're doing, are actually in line with your body, with what your body needs. And so, using the test in order to tick that box and understand that, make sure that what we're doing is actually working, is extremely important to them. Are there more areas of focus for someone who is an elite athlete? Probably yes. But in the case of weight loss, the concept of measuring mechanical efficiency, metabolic efficiency, et cetera, is so important for the end goal that even that alone certainly sanctions the usage of the device. But just to answer the question in a more general manner, we obviously have clients in both ends of the spectrum. The majority, as I said, is general population fitness, because it's a much bigger market, and probabilistically you're going to get more more people coming from that industry, especially when you're marketing to both industries. But I think there's certainly a pretty strong offering for everyone.
And do you get people, because there's people probably hearing this or have come across your product and thought, I don't need that. I know how to get results. I don't need that data. That's just noise. What do you say to those people?
I'm sorry, I didn't exactly understand the question.
So you must get some people that, and there'll be people listening to this who think, okay, tons of data, that just seems like noise. I don't need all that information. I know how to get someone results with the workout protocols, the diet plans I've used with my clients for years. So what do you say to those people? Have you had that type of opposition at all from the market? There's people that don't feel like they need it. Yeah.
Yeah, there will always be people that kind of oppose progress, in the sense that they believe that what they're doing is the only way, or they believe that they have found the recipe based on a couple of data points, which might be working for a few people, but that's not really a scientific approach. I think I don't need to explain why that's not science. But luckily, this is a very, very small segment of the fitness industry today. Like the great thing, the great shift that has happened in the fitness industry is that most people today understand that it is impossible to create a program that is one size fits all. It is impossible to just look at someone and understand what works for them and what doesn't. And you need some sort of tool in order to make sure that what you're doing is actually working. And in the world of physiology, sports science, et cetera, the most foundational tool, and pretty much the only tool that science has in its possession in order to scan all of these systems concurrently, is cardio-metabolic analysis. There isn't anything else out there. Obviously, if someone wants to rely on more, on empiricism, that's obviously his call, but that's not science.
What was I going to ask you? I had this great question. It's just totally disappeared. And whilst I'm trying to remember what that is, do you want to just make sure that we take a moment to describe how this works? Because I know you've got images on the website, but it'd be good to just describe, how exactly you perform the cardio-metabolic tests.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have two types of tests. You have the resting test and the active test. The active test can have multiple different. There are multiple different ways to perform the active test. The most standard one is by doing the traditional step protocol, where you put someone on the device, you strap on the mask, you have them use a treadmill or a stationary bicycle, and then they increase intensity every couple of minutes, and you actually see what is happening metabolically in their body as intensity increases. And by doing so, we actually scan all of the different things that we went through: musculoskeletal efficiency, ventilation mechanics, fat burning efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. There are obviously the freestyle protocols, as we like to call them, where you take the device and then you run out with it, or you do things with it. For example, you can do dynamic style workouts, like do more like strength training workouts with the device. And there's quite a few people who do that. Now we're going more into the data freak population, researchers or people who work with high-end athletes and are trying different things, et cetera, et cetera. The reason why things get more tricky there is because in order to have like a standard way of analyzing data, you need to have a standard protocol. In any type of assessment, physiological or anything, like any type of assessment you perform, you need to, in order to have strong confidence in the data by doing one test, you need to have control of the stimulus that you provide. So you need to be controlling for the intensity. When we leave the treadmill, when we leave the stationary bicycle, and we start doing freestyle protocols where we don't necessarily control the intensity, because you have the person on his own, like managing his pace or managing the time during which he's doing the movement, et cetera, et cetera. Intensity becomes harder to control. That doesn't mean that there isn't value in doing such protocols. It is hard to build them and then much harder to analyze them. But as I said, there's a bunch of people who do that, mainly from the athletic world. It's, the type of analysis done there is very, very different. In many cases, we actually jump in and help them out and help them make sense, draw insights from the data. But yeah, this is how the whole thing works. Now the device is cloud connected, so it sends everything to our cloud in real time. In the cloud, you have a pretty comprehensive data analysis platform that allows you to plot all kinds of cardio-metabolic information, and then it is also compatible with fit files, CSV files. So if you have information from other devices that you want to merge in, you can do so. So you can essentially plot any type of physiological data in that platform. We also have a direct integration with Moxie, which is a muscle oxygenation system. It's a very important part when you're doing testing for athletes. Yeah, that's how the whole thing works.
And there's also, I don't know if you mentioned this, but an app on the phone. It's super user-friendly, very easy to use, which obviously connects to the cloud and enables the business owner to actually manage their clients and the results from their phone as well, which seems pretty cool.
Correct. Yeah. So you actually monitor the evolution of the test from your phone, and then everything is being sent to the cloud. Our team has obviously access to the cloud, so whenever you're doing a test and you want that test to be analyzed, we have immediate access to the data, so we can use it and analyze it. So yeah.
So the thing I was going to ask you earlier, which I forgot in the moment, was I'm just curious. Do you see, in terms of individual programming when it comes to nutrition and training, maybe? Yeah, we can talk about both. Do you see enormous differences? So do you see radically different plans across the board, or are there more similarities and differences? I'm just curious because, right now, for example, you've got all these people arguing for different diets, right? You should be eating carnivore, you should be eating vegan, paleo, fill in the blank, elimination diet. And, I'm just curious, do you see... maybe we can take nutrition to keep it simple. Do you see enormous differences in individuals' nutritional requirements that that the tests are suggesting? And does that play itself out in terms of huge differences in macronutrients and things like that?
Okay, something that I do need to clarify is that based on ample scientific data, the most important thing for achieving weight loss is caloric deficit. So it's about calories in, calories out. There are several studies that have shown that a specific caloric deficit on a keto diet is going to yield the same response as the same caloric deficit in a paleo diet or a high carb diet or a Mediterranean diet or whatever diet. Macronutrient breakdown is important when it comes to the fitness goal. When it comes to, hey, do I want to build muscle? Do I want to...
But also sustainability, right? Like a lot of these high carb diets, they don't sustain the weight loss. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And sustainability in the sense that it needs to be something that you like. So our approach here is you actually tell us, when we build a diet for you, is you actually tell us what type of diet would you like? Do you like a Mediterranean diet? Do you like paleo? Do you like this? Do you like that? Fill in the blank. And then we use the metabolic information in order to see how many calories you need to be eating for that specific diet. But a lot of studies, I can share that with you. The latest one was done at Stanford it was one of the biggest one. It was around 600 participants. Half of them went on high carb. The other half went on low carb. Exactly the same result.
Who was the lead on that one? I don't know. I might have heard of that.
Christopher, I don't remember his name, but I can send you the link.
Oh, is it Gardner? Is it Gardner?
Yeah.
I've heard of it. Do you mind sending that to me, and I'll put it in the show notes for this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the first one, right? There are several studies that have shown that, hey, all of that noise about, hey, it's, the specific macros you put in the body, or your genetics, or this or that. Obviously, there is probably some sort of impact, but the vast majority of the biggest chunk of what's going to drive change here is calories in, calories out. What's going to matter the most is whether you're eating the right amount of calories based on the workout that you're doing and what type of workout you're doing. This is the primary driver in achieving weight loss. And so, as I said, when we prescribe diets, you let us know what you like to eat. Obviously, it needs to be within reasonable boundaries of eating healthy. Like, you can't tell me that I want to be eating pizza every day and I prescribe a diet that has the right caloric intake, but it's pizza every day. You will not get neither the macronutrients nor the micronutrients needed to maintain proper health. But for as long as we are ticking like some basic boxes about what is about a healthy diet in terms of fruits, vegetables, etc., then it's all about calories.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, makes some sense. Okay, so let's see. I want to just see. Yeah, one of the things that interested me, maybe you've already touched on this a bit. I was looking at one of the reports on one of your videos online, and it showed the graph for calorie burning efficiency. I get that. That's obvious. That kind of is easy to understand. But then you had another graph which showed fat burning efficiency. How do you measure that exactly? Have you already? I can't remember if you've already touched on that during this conversation. So forgive me if I'm asking you to repeat yourself.
No. Of course not. So, caloric burn efficiency is how efficient we are in burning calories. Like, are we economic?
But there's a fat burn efficiency. That was a separate graph.
Yes, that's a separate thing. So, caloric burn efficiency is how economical are we? So, as an engine, are we burning a lot of fuel? Or are we not burning a lot of fuel? Fat burning efficiency is, okay, irrespectively of how much fuel we're burning, where is that? What tank are we using predominantly? Are we using more carbs or are we using more fats? And how is that changing as intensity increases? So as intensity increases, obviously, carbohydrate oxidation, usage of carbs is going to become more and more predominant in the energy generation process. And that is because we are requesting higher power outputs. In other words, we are requesting more energy on a per time basis. And fat is a slow burning fuel. It cannot generate as much energy on a per time basis. So we need more fast burning fuels. That's why we go to carbs and other stuff. Now, the extent to which we are able to maintain fat oxidation for longer periods of time is dependent on our mitochondria, on the ability of our mitochondria to utilize fat. And that's fat burning efficiency.
Is that related to metabolic flexibility? Have you heard that being said?
Yeah. So metabolic flexibility is another big area. We don't really talk about metabolic flexibility a lot because it's still under investigation, and it's still it's quite hard to test it and be sure that what you're seeing is true signs of metabolic flexibility and metabolic inflexibility. Metabolic flexibility is two things: is the ability of our body to regulate energy expenditure as a response to a specific stimulus, and our body's ability to change fuel utilization as a response to a specific stimulus. So when we're cutting calories, is our body able to drop its metabolic activity? Or when we're increasing calories, like the calories that we eat, is our body ramp up metabolic activity? That's regulating energy expenditure. And then substrate utilization. When we consume a high carbohydrate meal, will that cause an increase in carbohydrate utilization? Or will our body not be able to put these carbs in usage right away? So what a lot of endocrinologists are looking at when it comes to metabolic flexibility is they're looking at it from the perspective of fuel switch usage, so going from fat to carbohydrate oxidation and vice versa, because what metabolic flexibility or inflexibility shows you is to what extent a person is becoming insulin resistant. Because when you are consuming a meal which is high in carbohydrates and you have some sort of insulin resistance, what's going to happen is that due to the lack of insulin, which is the hormone that allows the carbohydrate molecule to enter your muscles and be burnt there, due to that lack of insulin, carbohydrates will not reach the cells of your muscles. They will not be burnt. As a result, your carbohydrate utilization is not going to increase. And that is a sign that there is a problem when it comes to utilizing carbohydrates in your body. So it's a more of a new approach of understanding whether someone is becoming is becoming insulin resistant. But it is certainly something that it requires quite a bit of a protocol, like a strict protocol, in order to be able to.
Do you feel that idea challenges the CISO view?
Sorry,
do you think that idea CISO is calories in, calories out? So do you think that challenges the calories in, calories out conclusion?
No, it's completely independent to calories in, calories out, because calories in, calories out will regulate body weight. Ability to utilize fuel has to do with specific pathology of our body, basically lack of ability to produce insulin. So two very, very different things.
Okay. All right. So let's just aware of time. Let's move on to the business model side of things. So if people are interested in the product, do you want to just talk about the cost? Because I think it's quite attractive. It's an attractive business model. Do you want to just give an overview of the pricing for people?
Yeah. So normally the official price of the product is $7,500, and then there are certain packages that you can get, which will basically lead to a discount on that price. And obviously, if you want to get more information, you should contact us. And then there is a fee for the analysis that we conduct, which is $20. Again, you get discounts based on how many reports you're getting, etc. And then when it comes to our service, there's 3 layers. One is the standard report that we provide to you for $20. Then you have the precision diet program, which is in addition to the report that you get, you also get a complete meal by meal diet plan for your customer, which is obviously based on the metabolic information that we collect and also the questionnaire that they fill out. And then the third layer is the precision workout plus precision diet, which is the whole shebang. The workout, diet, and obviously all of the reports.
And if they don't want to pay the $7,500 up front, you can pay $200 a month. Is that right, on finance?
So yeah, you can finance the device. There's a down payment, and then there's a monthly plan. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Because I thought that might be appealing to some people, because your average revenue, or at least the video I saw showed average revenue of $1,000 to $2,000 a month. So if you're paying $200 a month in finance, you're going to get a return on investment pretty quickly on the product.
Correct. Yeah. So you can get the device with financing. In the States, we work with a couple of financing companies. But in general, something else that we do is that we can also do internal financing. So we don't involve any third parties. In that case, we do request a down payment, and then the balance is put in a 24-month installment plan.
And last question for you. Are you seeing the end users love this? Like, what sort of reactions are you getting from? Obviously, the business is doing great, which is potentially a sign that people are loving it. But I'm just curious what sort of reactions you're getting, because I know that your customers are mostly the gyms, right? The personal trainers. And then it's their end users. I'm interested in their reaction to this.
Sure. Like what most people like is that and I'm referring to the end users, because it's because of the end users that we're actually doing good as a business. Like, the end users are seeing things and they want the test, and as a result, we deploy a device, and then usage takes off in the gym. Now, why is usage taking off? I think, and what we've seen is, I think, becoming clearer and clearer, is that people are ultimately understanding how their body works. People are understanding that, these fad diets, these, trends that they hear online aren't necessarily something, in most cases, they're not something that will produce results, and that, what they have been feeling to be the right course is actually being supported now by science-based approach, a science-based device that is helping them get there faster and with greater confidence. And in all honesty, this is the primary reason why we're seeing results when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to better performance, et cetera, et cetera.
Awesome. And just to let everyone know listening, I have no partnership with PNOE. So this really was an interview to really give you a comprehensive view of the product to enable you to make an informed decision. But, I'm not getting any kickback for you purchasing one of these. And that's really the purpose of this, was just to give you an educational resource, since, some of you have told me you're interested in looking at learning more about PNOE. Panos, thank you so much for this and for taking the time. I am very impressed by your degree of knowledge, and this has been really interesting learning for me. What's the best way for people to contact you and learn more about PNOE?
So the best way would be to, first of all, follow us on Instagram. We are PNOE Analytics. Feel free to reach out via email, info@mypnoe.com. PNOE.com. Also, you can visit our website, www.mypnoe.com. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And for everyone listening, to find...
Thank you so much for inviting me here. It was a real pleasure. And I really like the challenging questions. It's always a pleasure to be able to sit with someone and have a honest talk about what works and what doesn't. So much appreciate that. Thanks so much.
That's a very gracious way to respond to that, and I appreciate that too, because I feel like not enough people do podcasts where they do challenge the guests, and I feel like, how can we learn if we're not honest and we don't challenge each other? So.
Absolutely. 100%.
Right. And no, I'm really pleased that you said that. Yes, so for everyone listening, to find the blog post for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com, search for episode 249. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Discover how to achieve your health and fitness goals, become a great personal trainer, and build a successful high-intensity training business. Check out highintensitybusiness.com. highintensitybusiness.com.
This episode is brought to you by the Resistance Exercise Conference. Would you like to learn from the top strength training professionals and researchers, network and connect with other exercise professionals from all over the world, and get inspired, rejuvenated, and focused on your strength training business? I certainly do, and that is why this will be my third appearance at REC. It's my favorite weekend of the year, and I'm so excited to attend again in March 2020. So why else should you attend REC? Well, firstly, there will be keynote presentations from exercise icons like Dr. Bente Clarland-Pedersen, Stuart Phillips, PhD, James Fisher, PhD, and Luke Carlson. As a studio owner, you will learn business tactics and strategies on how to grow your business from the CEO of Discover Strength, the highest revenue producing strength training company in the nation. Moreover, you will grow your network by connecting with other strength training business owners from around the world. As a personal trainer, REC will provide you with tangible training techniques to take back to your clients to implement right away for better results. And REC is approved by ACSM, NASM, ACE, and NSCA for continuing education credits. The conference will be held on the 27th and 28th of March 2020 at the gorgeous Graduate Hotel in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Join me and register now over at resistanceexerciseconference.com. If you want to take your strength training business to the next level and build a world-class personal training and business network, you must attend. Please register now over at resistanceexerciseconference.com.